Hello, everyone. Peter Mebert with Mebert Start Dialogues here. Today we have a wonderful guest, Karina, and Karina will definitely tell you about herself. But we met recently, a couple of months ago, and Karina will give us very practical view on what does it mean to be a successful international startup founder in the United States. And she has enormous amount of experience and insights. So Karina, the floor is yours. To begin with, just quick introduction, a little bit about yourself, where you started, where you came from, how do you adopt it, how you become so successful, and kind of link to what you do now, and then we'll go into details.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, Peter. Seriously, this is really fun. So, Karina Sotnik, I'm originally from Riga. I came to the United States in 1988 when Gorbachev just opened the door, and I was one of the first tourists with a tourist visa that came to the United States. I just graduated at that time from Riga Technical University, and just happened to be at the right place at the right time in Silicon Valley at the end of 80s. I ended up staying there because we all know that the history took turn, and there were a lot of interesting events happening. But that's my Americana started in Silicon Valley, in Palo Alto, and then San Francisco in the late 80s. And I always joke that I actually don't have a formal MBA, but did I get my MBA through that. So I was newly minted engineer. I'm not very good as an engineer. So very quickly I pivoted to, business development or sales engineer, as it was called then. And then took upon myself things that no one knew how to do. And I became in charge of international expansions for the tech companies. And so I joined a wonderful company called Edify. I was employee number 34, so pretty early, and rode that wave of early dot-coms through the IPO. But I was expanding their footprint in Asia, in Europe, in all sorts of countries, in Australia and New Zealand, happened to travel around the world. It was really fabulous time. But I also learned through that experience firsthand how difficult it is to expand to other markets, what you need for that, what type of support you need for that. So that was really good learning. And after that, I met my wonderful husband, who was teaching as a professor in Los Angeles. So I moved to Los Angeles. I had a wonderful time there helping another startup with their international relations, and also went IPO with them. So then lost everything in the year 2000. Wow. I was when my husband met me.
I remember that year. I remember that was painful.
So true story. When we were getting married in 1999, my husband's best friend came up to me and said, "I just want to let you know he is not marrying you for money," because I was so rich on paper. And then we know what happened in 2000. We lost it all and some. So that's wonderful and a really good lesson to learn, like what's important, really. So money is not that important in my books. But anyway, so that was really interesting. And then he was offered the job to be chair of a department at the University of Pennsylvania, which is, Ivy League and wonderful. And so we moved to Philadelphia in early 2000s. And that's when I started my own businesses, and I tried kind of exercise different brain. I don't even know if I told you, Peter, but I opened a retail store. I did import-export. I did manufacturing. I kind of did very creative things, and I learned so much through it.
Amazing.
But it also taught me that, well, a lot of lessons there, but also that I'm much better when it comes to startups and technical things and solving like real world problems. rather than, retail is it made me very neurotic. And I'm not a neurotic person. So that was a lesson learned. So what put an end to that was the crash of 2008, because the countries where I was manufacturing and importing from, first they joined European Union, and then the labor cost tripled. Here's your MBA in a nutshell, right?
There you go.
The labor cost, the transportation cost, if you remember at that time, oil hit, $100 and more per barrel. So all the factors suddenly got stuck against me. And even though I was voted the best of Philadelphia and I was on the cover of Philadelphia magazine, it did not save my business. And in 2009, I closed it and started to think what else to do with myself. I had an opportunity to go and work in Europe. And when I came back in 2012, I was hired as a consultant to build an accelerator. And that was in 2012. Very few people knew.
Let me interrupt you for one quick second.
That's fine.
It's an exciting story. So let's unpack it. Okay. So because it's really too much in one passage, so to say. So our audience, mainly our target audience, are founders of business entrepreneurs from all over the world, right? And we're talking to you not only because you're just charming, charismatic, and wonderful person, but because you're so successful, right? So you came from the former Soviet Union. For people who don't know, you said you're from Riga. That's a beautiful but small country, proud country, Baltic country of Latvia. And at that time, it was one of the republics of Soviet Union.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it was Soviet stuff. So tell me, tell us a couple of things. Why did you decide to leave? Why did you decide to come to the United States? What were your expectations? And then give us a little bit of the feel, of the vibe of Silicon Valley in the late 80s, right? Now it's novel, right? It's just amazing. Microsoft wasn't even around pretty much, right?
Well, Microsoft was in Seattle, but yes.
Yeah, it was in Seattle anyway, right? But, it was an era of Hewlett Packard and some other companies, Xerox, Spark, all these companies. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that. Let us feel the vibe.
Yes. Okay, so let me set the stage. I was 23.
Okay.
At the ripe age of 23, there were multiple factors that contributed to me staying and not taking my ticket back, which I had because, as I said, I came as a tourist. Absolutely. Honestly speaking, there was a huge pressure on me to get married. So being a young woman from the Soviet Union at the ripe age of 23, all my friends were married with children and I was not. And there was an enormous societal and familial pressure to do that. Also, the tide was turning a little bit in terms of political aspects. And so when I came to San Francisco, I came to visit my family. My grandmother lived there since 70s. And at first, coming from Riga, which for those of you that don't know, is a beautiful medieval European city, coming to San Francisco with its two-story buildings, getting into, an immigrant diaspora, it felt very provincial to me. And my first inclination was to absolutely go back. But then the pressure got to me, and then I met a wonderful man who was my first husband, and all the stars aligned that I actually ended up staying because of marriage, and but also getting my first job in Silicon Valley, and really learning on the job what it means to be a professional in United States. Because I was actually working in Latvia. I was working for Academy of Science, the Institute of Electronics. So I saw how the sausage was made in the Soviet Union. And while the creativity and the technical genius was there in Latvia. The commercialization aspects, how to actually bring product to the market, all of this was vastly different in the United States. And getting engaged with early stage companies was especially rewarding. So I have not worked for large corporations in the United States. I was blessed with working with startups that then went IPO. So I kind of looked through the entire trajectory of how companies grow here. And that was just fascinating. And it was also, there's a lot of camaraderie among people that went through the 90s in Silicon Valley, because it was thrilling and exciting and new, and no template how to do it. So everyone kind of was discovering it on their own. And the company that I joined, Edify, was ahead of its time. It was doing the first internet banking. I remember in 1995, coming to my wonderful colleague, Anton, into his cubicle, sitting down and asking him, explain to me what Mozilla is and what is this thing, internet, right? 1995. Yeah. And then like 2 months later, internet banking, internet this and internet that, it was an explosion, really. And we had to learn fast, learn on the job, adapt to the market, figure out who the customer is for this, right? So all the things that every startup, whether then or right now, is going through. So that was thrilling. Yes.
Absolutely. I recall that time. Actually, this weekend, it was a homecoming event for, University of Pennsylvania, which I graduated from. And so we met some friends on campus, and I was walking around this Vance Hall where Wharton School was mainly. And I remember that at that time, in 1994, 95, in order to send a message to all students at Wharton, you had to print out flyers and put them in individual, folders, right? So you have 2 rows of folders. You have like 1,500 students and, 2 years of Wharton to invite people for a, conversation, for whatever, party or an event, right? You have to print out this blocks of paper and put them manually, to everybody in class. It's just unbelievable. And then I was lucky because my first job out of Wharton was with the company Diamond Technology Partners. I think it's now Diamond Technology Consulting or something like this. And it was the concept, which I think was very, very, timely. It was an amazing person by the name of Mebert Start, who unfortunately passed away. But it was the first company, strategy consulting for technology-intensive industries. That's how it was stated. In financial services, banking plus retail plus publishing plus some other industries. It was the first year of internet, and it was such a disruptive, technological revolution there. It was just unbelievable. That was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So for people who still, let's get back to your story. People who, thinking of coming or dreaming or planning coming to the United States with the business, what would be from your experience, do's and don'ts for first generation immigrants coming to the United States? Well,
this is what I do right now, right? So let me fast forward.
All right.
I will skip the 12 years in between. But what I do right now is I run a company called World Upstart that helps international companies expand to U.S. markets. And we're very industry focused. We actually work with life science, MedTech, health tech companies. But I think the steps are the same no matter what industry you're in. A lot of people think that they have a cousin who lives in New York, and that cousin will become their representative, and that cousin will make them successful in the United States. Well, I don't know any examples when that actually happens. Another myth is that it's so much easier to fundraise in the United States. You just come here and the money grows on trees and investors just throw it at you. even if you go to Silicon Valley. Not the case. You and I both know it's really difficult to fundraise no matter where you are. And in the United States, it's a big market. It's a big and desirable market because it's so big. So chances are, no matter what industry you're in, it represents 50, 60% of your world market. So your customers are here. So because it's such a big and desirable market, it's the same for your competitors. And so there's no shortage of companies growing here on its own turf, but also coming here from all over the world. And so you need to start thinking as a US company. You need to start presenting yourself as a US company with origins elsewhere if you want to fundraise here. Because very few investors will invest in your company if it's still in Sweden or South Korea or Azerbaijan, right?
Sure.
Because they don't want to learn laws of those countries. They understand the laws of United States, and especially they understand the laws of the state of Delaware, where the majority of companies are incorporated. So the first advice will be get yourself here, or get your team here, or hire here, but also bring your own resource. We see it both ways. We see founders moving here, but we also see founders hiring here and then putting some of their resources here as well. Because you need that institutional knowledge that the company brings, but you also need to have knowledge and understanding of the market. So that's one thing I would say. Also learn what are the investors' expectations. Their expectations is that, yes, you will be incorporated here, your IP will be here, and that's usually the problem with a lot of companies because they have investors in their own countries, right? What would be the relationship of your new US company to the company where you're coming from? Who is going to be what we call the top co? And which one will be the subsidiary? So all of this are important aspects for founders to figure out. And then, of course, there's regulatory, whether you're fintech or energy or healthcare. All of these aspects also are important. And one last thing, you started this company because you're solving specific problem, right? Because you're passionate about the problem. Well, in a lot of cases, the problem that you're passionate about and you solve in your own country might not necessarily be the problem here. So figuring out which problem are you actually solving will also let you figure out who your customer is here. And that's the important distinction.
Thank you for that. We'll get back to this in a minute. I just want to have a little bit more of your personal touch. So on a personal basis, as a young woman, as a new person to the United States, what were, maybe some mistakes, maybe some funny situations you got yourself into? What were your expectations? What did you find, exceeding your expectations, or vice versa? On a personal basis, what would you tell to people, people who are, still planning to come to the United States?
Well, by now, you know me, I'm brutally honest. So I'm going to give brutally honest, reply. So two things come to mind. I don't know how many women you interviewed, and maybe I'm your first woman interviewed. So I remember distinctly coming to a company's interview and being told that I'm too pretty to be an engineer.
Oof.
Yes.
Oof.
And maybe looking back, I wasn't a great engineer, but to hear that, ouch, really, that was unfortunate.
That was pretty sexist, even for Soviets.
That was late 80s.
Yeah, but even for Soviet, standards, it was pretty sexist kind of statement. Because in Soviet Union, you probably had some of it, but not in this explicit form.
Never. No,
never.
Actually,
it was
I don't
promoted equality between women and men. Yes, engineering is definitely predominantly man's field, but to say something like this is just outrageous. Okay.
True story.
Right.
And the second thing I would say, so growing up in the Soviet Union, we kind of developed this certain mentality of trying to find our way through the cultural and governmental problems, right? So we're trying to sometimes weasel our way through, which does not work in the United States. And I had to learn a word, integrity, which does not have an equivalent in Russian language.
100%.
100%. And that was a really important lesson for me to learn. And thankfully, I learned it early on. And I think that is probably the most important thing to understand how business is done here in the United States.
Would you please elaborate on that? Tell us about integrity.
Well, integrity is doing everything by the law, but also doing things that will benefit the mission, the company, the product, and not necessarily just benefit you. And sometimes we see that that threshold being elusive for some of the companies coming from different cultures. And I would just leave it at that.
I would say that to me, integrity is also live by your own, values.
That's
and
true.
set of
Absolutely.
belief, and be just true with yourself.
Yeah.
Don't compromise your set of beliefs and make these decisions.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and in America, it's also this thing which I probably didn't understand fully. They typically say, "Do the right thing."
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this right thing has it's a very loaded statement. Right. Yeah. Again, be honest with yourself, with your company, with your partners, and things like this.
With your investors, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. All of your stakeholders, right? Including yourself as a main stakeholder.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Any funny situations you got yourself in the beginning of your journey?
I mean, my English was terrible, and yes, I would go to a high-stake meeting, and I will say something like, "Well, let's do some brainstorming." No, let's do some storm braining. Storm braining. Yes, that happened. So obviously it was a great icebreaker too. But yeah, you get yourself into a straight, you're still learning the culture, you're still learning the language. Being in the front of the customer rather than in the back room with engineers. There were a lot of learning that I had to do. Absolutely. Yeah.
I had a very, very funny and embarrassing story because I was back in Moscow at that time, and I worked for an American company, and there were two friends of mine, Sarah and Linda, and they were helping me with editing my essays to send it to work and blah blah blah, and also my kind of bio, right? This is the resume, and I didn't have any exposure at that time, obviously for formal business, English language, and I learned a lot, just from the conversations, and I heard them saying couple of things, and I decided, and what I didn't know, that actually written English language is very different from the spoken English language, which is not again true. Right. It's very different from the language we all know. Anyway, so in my resume, I gave them my resume to edit and to prove, and they started laughing so badly. They laughed pretty much under the table. So what I said, instead of what I meant to say, that I had a lot, high attention to detail, and I used the word anal. And I said in my resume that I was anal about something.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
do you really
exactly.
understand what it means?
Yeah.
I guess whatever. So yeah, sometimes you can get yourself in something really, really funny. Really funny.
Yeah. Many stories like that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get back to the accelerator. It's going to be a whole kind of block in our conversation. No, I want to save it for the rest of it, for the end of it. So we have some practical steps. Maybe you provide some practical advice and whatever, even homework for some of our audience people, to where to start. But you said that you were through several cycles, right, of success and failure. And actually, I got married in 1999. I was in San Diego, California, not far from you, from LA, and I had my first startup. and I raised my first million, and I had my great CEO, very senior person, and we're raising a second round of about $7 million, and I was really all excited. And then it happened, I think it was like 15th of May or 15th of April, year 2000, and the whole thing collapsed, right? The first bubble burst. So it was very, very painful. You lost money, I lost opportunity, so it was pretty bad. So tell us, what would be your kind of advice, and how did you go through ups and downs? How did you, survive and persevere, this kind of things? Where did you get your, psychological stability and energy and, belief to move forward?
Well, I have to say a lot of credit goes to my husband, my second husband, who is my husband for the last 25 years, who really went on adventure with my different businesses and supported them all. And that, you need to have that support, because having a startup is neurotic is a good word, but also it's not stable. There's so much risk involved. And you need to have the right personality, but you also need to surround yourself with the personalities that can tolerate that risk. Speaking of risk-taking, so when I was working at the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn was involved with a study where, if you remember, they sent twin astronauts. One they sent to space and another one was on the ground, and they did the study of how their brain works. So they needed a control group. UPenn did that study, and I enrolled into that control group, and they did all sorts of study on me and my colleagues' brains. And one of the things it showed about my personality, I have a really high tolerance for risk, which I didn't even know, but official study confirmed it. So I think you need to have that in order to go through the crashes and the highs of being an entrepreneur. But you can develop it, but I think you also sometimes just born with it. And so having that tolerance for risk-taking is important, because there are people that would just never survive that otherwise. So when we say you have or you have not that entrepreneurial bug, that also means that you have a really high threshold for risk. So I would say that. And then I already mentioned to you, we went through the period of much money, no money. So money in the long run should not be a motivator. You really, if you're getting into it for money, there are easier ways to get money, right? Go and build your career in large corporations, climb that ladder. That's the easier way to the money. I think to be entrepreneur, you really want to be a problem solver. And I keep saying that, it's a phrase that's being echoed in a lot of places, but I meet a lot of entrepreneurs that are kind of in love with their product. And it's a problem, because if you're in love with your product and it doesn't work, then what? You need to be in love with the problem. And if you're in love with a problem, then you can try different products. You can fail. You can go and try other ways to solve that problem. So that, I think, should be the motivation if you really want to become an entrepreneur. In my book.
Interesting. It's kind of it opens something different. I think it's really glamorous, right, to be a tech startup founder. Okay, but this is, first of all, it's success bias. So we don't know how many people failed. We just know the beautiful stories about all sorts of unicorns and beautiful things. And one year in California, I remember you have this young, apparently from Asia, I guess, software engineer, a beautiful new BMW, and the guy looked like 25, 27 years old, and the license plate says, first mill. So they made the first million. It's also glamorous, right? But then you have to survive. And I think for people, it's very obvious that if you're not, 6'5", whatever, tall, you probably don't have really good chance in a basketball team. Okay, be realistic. Okay, or if you don't have a very good, ear then probably you're not a good violin player, and you have no chance to succeed. You can play for yourself if you want, really to disturb your neighbors, but definitely don't have a chance. What are the, characteristics of, psychological characteristics, right, of a person who, in your opinion, may have a chance to become a successful entrepreneur, a successful founder? And how would you go about, detecting, finding those, whether it's good fit for a person to be a founder?
Well, let's make a distinction: founder or a CEO.
Okay. Well, let's start with the founder.
Okay.
Because founder carries most of the entrepreneurial risks.
So, yes. So founder, and I work with a lot of founders. So founders, again, the best founders that I see are the ones that are absolutely maniacally passionate about a specific problem. Like, they know everything about it. They know who else is in that field. They understand how the problem is solved today and why it's inefficient. These are the people, I think, that makes good founder, that really are that focused on that problem. And if that is a failure, then they go and they focus on another one. But it's that drive to find solution to this specific problem that they're passionate about, I think, is the number one. I'd say successful founders also recognize that they don't have all the answers. And this is really difficult. I see companies actually tanking because of the egos that gets in the way. So understanding that you cannot do it alone, and understanding that you're deficient in other things, and bringing the right people really becomes important. And that's why I'm asking, is it the founder or is it the CEO? Because I see a lot of founders coming out of academia, for example, just because we're in life sciences. And while they're really passionate and they really want to be the founders and entrepreneurs, so often they don't understand that they need to bring professional experienced CEO. And that's where people like you and me step in and try to convince them that that's the path. You can have, and sometimes it's, this is my coworker here. Sometimes it's, sometimes they don't want to give up control and they don't want to give up equity. And then, the current joke is, well, do you want to have a zero of $1 billion company, or do you want to have 25% of it? So, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the best two moves I made with my first startup in 1999, first I got myself a very good advisory board. And there were people who were willing to help to a young kid who just graduated and was like about 30 years old or something, right? And they didn't expect much. So they opened doors, they give you warm handshakes, give you some basic advice. And one of the advices is also, as early as possible, get yourself a professional CEO. And my startup at that time was in a B2B consumer goods space, was trade liaison between international producers and whatever. And I found a great guy. Somehow I lost track of him. I cannot track him down now. But he was a senior partner responsible for the entire West Coast in the consumer goods vertical from Anderson Consulting, right? And he knew so many people. He had vision. He knew how to manage and scale teams. And he gave me so much credibility. It's a great co-worker working on it. What's his or her name?
It's Zach. I have Pushkin and Zach. Pushkin will make appearance as well.
Okay.
I'm sure of it.
Excellent. Excellent. Good to have them. I have a question for Pushkin and Zach, so I'll bring them in. Now, Sure. Anyway, so that's definitely very important. And a good CEO was just a huge boost of reputation, right, and boost of credibility, right? Because you may have all ideas, but people will not give you money unless you can prove that you can scale and you can bring them return on investment, and you know how to do that. And when you're young, even I had an MBA, so I had some credibility, not an engineer, but still, this gray hair guy had a lot of credibility.
You said something really important, and I want to mention that another aspect, what would make international companies successful here, is building a local U.S. advisory board, but also bringing the right people to the board of directors. And for young entrepreneurs, assembling your own board of directors is like so critical before you go for your first funding, because investors would place their people on the board. You want to have your people on the board. It's critical to the success of the company to have your board, both advisory board and board of directors. So cannot agree with you enough. This is that important. For international people, bringing key opinion leaders on the board, it could be everything. Once investors hear that you have, the top oncologist from University of Pennsylvania on your board, that opens doors. It really does. So that's a really good recommendation.
100%. So we spoke a little bit about how you went through the difficult times and times of failure or something like that. But you also mentioned that you were on the cover of a magazine as a top entrepreneur.
No, it was the best. So Philadelphia Magazine every year puts a issue of best businesses in different categories.
All right.
And so my business was named Best of Philadelphia. There was even an article, I think, in London Financial Times mentioning my business, which, this were the highlights. But then, so I don't know when you graduated from Wharton.
96.
But 96. So you missed, I don't know if you were in Philadelphia at that time, but 2008 crash was such an interesting time to observe here because, with 2000 crash, I was in Silicon Valley, and that was interesting to see. I'll give you a funny story. So in 1999, we were hiring, and at that time, the market was bonkers. Everyone was hiring. So many people were coming to Silicon Valley, as you remember. It was so difficult to find the right people. And I remember scheduling to interview someone, and then that person called half an hour before interview and basically said, let's cut to the chase. This other company is giving me this salary plus BMW. What are you giving me? Right? So people were that brazen, right? And then the crash came, and suddenly they cannot afford rent. They cannot afford, there were all these support groups of people living in Silicon Valley supporting themselves through the transition. Well, similar thing happened here in 2008 in Philadelphia. And because of the proximity to UPenn, all these graduates from, recent graduates from Wharton that were interviewing with Lehman Brothers, with all the big firms, suddenly, poof, in a matter of a week, lost it all. And so, observing this two kind of within 8 years of each other events, brutal. It really is brutal.
Yeah.
So
I was out of the country at that moment, but I know it's really, really brutal at this time.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. So let's get back then to your accelerator. So just tell us a little bit of history. How did you come up with this idea? Who is it for? And what's kind of curriculum and what the kind of admissions criteria do you use, and what do you provide? What's your value added?
Yeah, so this is the third accelerator that I've built. The first accelerator, I think I mentioned, I was hired by UPenn as a consultant to build an accelerator, and at that time, very few people understood A, how to build accelerators, and B, we were focused then on mobile technologies because there were mobile apps everywhere. I was joking that every bus driver in Los Angeles has idea for a movie script. well, every person here had an idea for a mobile app, right? And so we needed to build a program to really distill great ideas into businesses. And so I ended up building that program where we collected 400 ideas from campus, including MBAs, but doctors, nurses, poets, everyone. And then we had 25 VCs evaluating them. And then we had distilled them to 10. And then they had to pitch themselves to software development companies. And then those companies picked the best to build prototypes. And so we had the whole process of doing that. And that's how that was the first accelerator I built. And I've learned a ton through it. And we started 19 great companies out of Penn. So that was first. Then I went to another organization to build Accelerator. But the accelerator that I'm running right now is specifically for international companies that are looking to expand to US in MedTech, in life sciences, in medical devices, or digital health. And again, you perfect it, it's a living, breathing organism, the program that we run. So we created curriculum. It's 6 weeks curriculum. It's pretty intense. People say it's like drinking from the fire hose. Okay. It's 2 expert sessions per week. And finding the right expert sessions. You look at other programs and curriculum and accelerators. In a lot of places, they live on sponsorships. And what does that do? Let's say I'm a law firm and I'm paying this accelerator money to give a session on how to incorporate in the United States. Well, maybe for half of the session, I will talk about how great the law firm is. So you get infomercials, right? We have a hard rule. All of our experts, the moment they start to self-promote, they're out. And so through these iterations, we found the best experts in each topic that just gives the most practical advice to companies. Why advice on why you should not send freedom to operate analysis to your investors through the email. There's like really practical things. So that's one thing. We had to kind of create curriculum of figuring out what exactly the companies need and then finding the expert that can really deliver it. And then we started looking for mentors. Mentors are as important as experts. Mentors are local people, successful entrepreneurs, in our case also maybe former heads of pharma, people that run hospitals, doctors. And we ask those mentors, they all volunteer their time. And we ask them to concentrate with companies on business development strategies and fundraising strategies, because every company that comes through us want to fundraise in the United States. And so that's how we kind of, we now have 40 mentors. We graduated 83 companies from 20 countries. Traditionally, statistically speaking, only 1 in 5 companies succeeds expanding to US. Well, with us, it's about 40% of our graduates are here. So we say we're doubling your odds. So I think we hit the right ratio of the right curriculum, the right experts, the right mentors, and the right length. It's 2 months. So for busy CEOs, it's online. They can do it while they're in France or, Poland or other places. And then they come here for this ecosystem, meeting potential clients, partners, pitching to investors. So that's the program.
So you're doing this online and offline, or is it completely online?
No, it's a hybrid. We do 6 weeks online with 2 expert sessions per week and 1 mentoring per week. And then companies physically come here. And we stage what we call industry showcase, where we invite 60, 70, 80 people in a room to meet with companies. And these are important people for them to meet. So again, heads of pharma, heads of hospitals, so potential partner opportunity. And then the next day they pitch to about 8, 9 investors.
So what would be kind of admissions criteria? How do you select the best out of the best?
I think so, and you and I talked about it. It's not necessarily, we don't look for, is this the best of the best company? What we look for, is this company ready for US? Because we cannot predict who will be successful here. No one can.
Right.
Market will predict, right? Even given all the best circumstances, some companies will be more successful than others. So we cannot predict that. What we can predict is what is your level of readiness? And what we look for, show us the demonstrated success in your own market where you know everyone, where you have your own sandbox to play in.
Yeah.
Show me that you were able to raise money, that you maybe have clients already and revenue, or if you're too early for that because life science companies are usually too early, show me that someone believed in you and actually funded you, right? So we look for those signs. And we look for signs, is this company ready for US? Meaning we have a whole 3 sessions on operations and being operational in the United States. If you're way too early, you don't need to understand how to hire here, how taxation works, how, all of this operational issues. And so if you're not ready for that, you're not ready for us. So in the interview, and we conduct interview with every company that we would consider, I ask companies, why now? Why not last year? Why not year from now? Like, what is it about your growth, your milestones that you need to be in the United States now? And based on their answers, then we make decisions.
What are the most common kind of misperceptions about the US market and most common questions?
Yeah, I would say it's not even about US market. The common misconception for a lot of companies is that they can do it on their own. And all they want from you, Mr. Consultant, is to introduce them to customers and investors, right? They come and they're like, we'll give you money if you introduce us to potential partners and investors. And then you're like, okay, we can do that. Thank you very much. But what's your reimbursement strategy? How are you going to be paid here and knowing the US healthcare systems? Do you understand your IP strategy? Do you understand the employment laws in California versus Massachusetts versus Pennsylvania? And so you start digging, and then it becomes apparent to them and you that they're absolutely not ready to be introduced to investors. And then we say, well, you need to get ready, whether through the program like ours or on your own or finding the right experts. Mm-hmm. But you really need to put some thoughts into your expansion. And that's not just true for US. It's for US companies that are looking to go to Japan or Germany, entering any market, you really need to prep yourself for that. And that takes time and money. So you also need to know that you have resources allocated for that. So
okay. Well, thanks. It's very good. Being expert in the healthcare and life science industry, give us kind of a quick overview. What are the major trends now? So people definitely talk a lot about AI. People talk about new, industrialization, about robots and things of this nature. What's happening in this field? The US is definitely the global leader for this area. What's up? What's happening?
Or so we want to think that we're global leader, but US has so many problems with healthcare. It's a topic for separate podcast.
That's true.
We have a lot of innovation. That is true. Yeah. And we have people that are hungry for innovation, thankfully. But, we see really interesting companies. We see, yes, AI in everything from imaging, and a lot of it is like science fiction. We had company from Norway that with special glasses allow surgeons to review organs that they're about to operate on in real time. So total science fiction, that's done with AI. We had company from France that has a predictable AI that can predict if patient will develop sepsis with about 70% accuracy, which is amazing, 48 hours before patient can exhibit the symptoms, which is really important. We had company that does an amazing, that's just total science fiction, a breast implant for after mastectomy, reconstruction of the breast. It's the 3D printed material that allows patients to, surgeons put their own patient's fat tissue onto that material and allows patient to grow their own fat tissue, essentially growing their own breast fat.
Wow.
And then this material dissolves in the body. So yes, we see absolutely incredible technologies in treating cancers and glioblastomas, but also in imaging and AI and sorting through patient data. Yeah, that it's really exciting to witness that.
Okay, well, it's amazing. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. When we're wrapping up our conversation today, hopefully we'll have another one at some point of time, I'm sure. But what will be your words of encouragement or discouragement, words of wisdom or whatever, words of support, whatever words you choose for the upcoming generation of founders who kind of thinking or dreaming or planning to go international and come to the United States? What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, congratulations. That's if you really want to do that, it's not an easy road, but it's exciting. US is really good at letting people try. There's some cultures that do not tolerate failure. We're really great at that, and we celebrate failure. So by all means, come here and try. Because if you do not succeed, you might succeed on a second or third trial. And that's really important to understand. I see a lot of companies coming from cultures that are so unforgiving to failures. And we're not. We celebrate it. It's important. We both know it because you learn so much. You learn very little from success. Everything you learn is from failures. So that's one thing. And another thing is, do not try to do it on your own. Really create a team, create a board. We talked about it. Prepare and know that, we talked about, the role of founder or CEO. A good CEO should not know everything. A good CEO should know that they don't know everything, and therefore surround themselves with the right talent to bring this cohesive picture together. And that's what entrepreneurs need to start thinking, and founders need to start thinking about. You know this much, your passion translates, which is really important, but also understand that you as a founder need to find other expertise and surround yourself with that expertise, because otherwise it's really an uphill battle. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I can only add that, I think the mastery of any soft human skills very important. So, you cannot do it alone. You have to know how to deal with people of different backgrounds and different nationalities, different of cultural backgrounds, what have you. And America is so rich and actually welcoming everybody here. Everybody speaks with its own or her own accent and have background, but at the same time, people are open to help. Well, Karina, thank you very much for your time. I think it was an exciting and very insightful conversation. Best of luck. And I hope that everybody who just heard about Karina's Accelerator, please don't hesitate. Get in touch. Get in touch. Karina's tough, but at least you can ensure the success in the end or increase your chance for success.
We're actually right now looking for companies for our next program that will start in September. So this is really timely. Thank you, Peter. This is really, I really enjoyed this conversation. I should do it more often. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, Karina. Yes. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye.